Awesome. So welcome, everybody. Welcome to your webinar, your live webinar, or perhaps you're listening to a recording further down the line. I'm Nadine Richardson, and I am the creator of the She Births program. And I'm here today to share with you, I suppose, some of the most commonly asked questions that I get about me and the program and birth. So, you know, I live my life kind of in service to birth. I'm extremely devoted to that. And so I hope that today I can share something of value and something that will allow you to have a better birth experience, a beautiful birth experience. And if you are a midwife or a practitioner in the birth arena is a funny word, but, you know, sometimes it's a bit like that, in the birth field, then I really hope that the information I share today is also helpful to you, but know that we will do other webinars more specific to care providers and health practitioners as well. So today I'm really tailoring it towards mums and their partners in the preparation for sometimes first birth, sometimes second, maybe even third and fourth. We've had lots of those people come along to She Births as well. So you all have access to a chat box. So as we go through, I can see your little typing in the chat box. So if you have any questions throughout the PowerPoint or as I'm talking, or if anything just kind of like you like it, it just lands, it's interesting, it's an aha moment, whatever it is, just give me some feedback and some response as we go on. That'd be really cool as well. So I know that you're all there, because it's always kind of weird talking out into the ether. And we've got people today from Sydney and Melbourne and Tokyo. And yeah, maybe type away into the little chat box where you're all, some of you are at work, wherever you all are. Just feel free to share where you all are while I just get ready to share my screen with you. And don't freak out when you see my messy desktop, okay, guys? It's the sign of a busy person, right? Here we go. Oh no, there it goes. It came up straight away, so that's good. Came up straight away. So I'm going to make sure that I can see our little chat box. Yes, there's a chat box thing. In Brisbane, currently on mat leave. Good for you, Lindsay. That's what we like to hear. So I'm pretty sure that you can all see this PowerPoint and my face. And if you have any problems hearing me or seeing me throughout the webinar, just let me know as well. Just chat away. So She Births came about 11 years ago officially, was when I ran the very first course. And it literally was a cup of tea for one day, share lunch, and talk about birth from a different perspective. And it's grown a huge amount pretty fast over those last 11 years. Over 5,000 families have participated in the program, and we are the only program in the world that has the scientific verification behind it, proving that birth education in this particular way can help you to have a better birth experience and improve your maternal and fetal outcomes. So I'll go through that. So I was going to talk a little bit about how I created the program and why on earth I did. It was certainly never a plan. What makes She Births unique, and the curriculum specifically that we cover, and our philosophy. And I'm going to talk about the research data that was published in the British Medical Journal and break that down for those people who are interested in that. And I can also talk through the different ways of engaging with She Births for different budgets, for different birth experiences, and so on. How to have, you know, a great cesarean section is covered, and in what way, and how to do that, and online and weekend course, all that kind of stuff. And then we've got some really good questions that have come in, and I've chosen, I couldn't do all of them, but I have chosen some comments and questions that I feel are probably relevant and worthwhile, and a lot of people are probably thinking at the same time. So Erin just said she completed the weekend course in Sydney over weekend. I think that was with my educator, Caitlin, and she said it was amazing. Good on you, Erin. Very glad. And I just want to acknowledge the time that you've made just to be here for this 1 hour. A lot of you during your pregnancy, I promise, helps. It's going to make such a difference, and you are stepping away from the norm and really taking yourself off the conveyor belt that so often happens in our really busy hospital systems. And already, just by being here, you are starting to take yourself closer and closer towards having a better birth. And that's really what I'm committed to and my life purpose. So I'm glad you're here. So I created it. We are about empowerment through education and so much more. We support a really wonderful company called TwoDay Health, the social impact company that provide childbirth education and parenting support via your phone. Because what does everybody have all around the world? They might not have computers, might not have internet out in really remote parts of developing countries, but everybody has a telephone and they can receive texts. So in 120 characters or less, lots of families are receiving support. And by you participating in SheBirths, we do a 1-for-1 sponsorship for those families. So we're really happy to be doing that. And I'm going to visit them next year when my son has finished his HSC, so that I can see what else they're doing and see how else we can support, because developing countries need a lot of help as birth is now moving from regional into hospital. And this is a whole nother story that we can have another time, but that's what we're doing. So thank you for supporting that as well. Okay, so let's have a look. Coming through, there it is. There's Leroy, baby number 1 on the left. And I suppose passion number 1 was yoga for me. And yoga, I began when I was 16, and tomorrow is actually International Yoga Day. It saved my life, and I went from severe anxiety disorder and through clinical depression and a whole lot of other issues in my life, and yoga has always been there to heal me. And so for me, when I got my dream job, I went from getting into medicine like my dad and my stepdad and my stepmom and my grandfather, choosing not to do that. I went into documentary film, had the dream job in documentary film, and I left it all at 21 to go and be a full-time yoga teacher. And that was because it had changed my life so much. So really, I do believe that the roots of the SheBirths program are coming from an alternative look at ourselves and our bodies and our minds, and the power of that body-mind connection that we foster and integrate and explore when we give ourselves space to do so. And the sense of agency that often comes from doing sometimes physical practices. And I know it doesn't have to be yoga, but for me, it has been the most transformative journey in my life. So I would say the actual roots of SheBirths come from yoga. And along the way, I've seen yoga help incredibly with birth, in pregnancy, but even in pre-labor. So we integrate that into the program as well as some of the philosophy. And Leroy's birth experience, you might have heard or might have read on the website, was quite shocking to me. Even after 12 weeks of birth education and a good 5 days off and on pre-labor and a good 2 days of established labor, I was 2 centimeters dilated, and I needed an epidural, without a doubt, and some syntocinon to get things moving. And it was really interesting to me. At the time, I wasn't traumatized, and I wasn't traumatized after his birth. I had such wonderful care. We had our own independent midwife, and Leroy's in part named after her. And I'm pretty sure that I would have had a cesarean section if it hadn't been for her advocating for me. The point I was at, I was ready to give up. But I did have this feeling after giving birth. Of course, there was the moment of meeting Leroy and discovering in that moment really what my intuition was, and discovering what silence was, and knowing what unconditional love was in that moment. And an incredibly powerful experience. But I did have this pondering after birth, and particularly as I tried to debrief things with birthing experts, that no one really understood why my birth had unfolded that way. And I got a feeling like there was a whole lot of confusion around birth. There was taboos, even experts weren't talking about. And pretty soon after I gave birth, a best friend gave birth too, and she had like this classic kind of 8-hour water birth in the birth center. And, she and I had the same size pelvises. We had similar sized babies. And I'm like, why was it different for me? What created such a big disparity in experience? Surely it's not just size. So for me, really soon after Leroy's birth, I really started reading all the books that I could. And those books are recommended on the She Births website, and they are also very much answered some of the questions. There were lots of aha moments in that, and it became really critical for me to see that there had been big gaps in my birth education. And I trained as a doula. Yay, let's have a look. We've got some more photos. Yay, working at the coalface. Longest hours you can spend on a job ever. Probably likely to get RSI at some point if you start taking up work as a doula, in your wrists and fingers and thumbs and all that kind of stuff. But honestly, it's such an amazing space to be in. It is sacred and it is powerful. And even when you're there for 16 hours, massaging, reassuring, helping couples make decisions, you just don't get tired. Well, I don't, because you're so present and in the zone. It really is. This is yoga in action now, when where the rubber hits the road. And that's the cool thing about birth, right? You've got this ultimate kind of time that you're now working towards, where you can put all your practice and your preparation into place. But the tricky thing is you don't get to have a rehearsal. So we try and do all that we can to build up analogies and metaphors in my yoga classes and in She Births to give you some kind of taste of labor and really give you great knowledge to be able to get a tangible, almost visceral expectation of what birth will feel like for you. And that's a really important thing, so that you don't become shocked and overwhelmed on the day. We try and build that up. And there's a whole spectrum of normal in that. So working at the coalface, I saw absolutely education, without a doubt, was making a difference, and the quality of education. And it was pretty clear to me that it was hit and miss in the standard hospital programs, which is what our study verified, that the majority of them are ineffective. And when we look at the Cochrane reviews, a lot of them actually even increase epidural rates. They build a lot of fear in a lot of people, and that tends to make us more afraid, which makes us contract more, which means we experience more pain and so on. It doesn't build confidence, and it doesn't give practical tools and things and ways that you can manage labor. So I saw that, and I started to train as a birth educator in two other paradigms, two other different programs that were available at the time. Everything that I could, I started studying. But it was also clear to me then, as a doula and in that study I was doing, that there was big gaps again in the education systems that were available, in their philosophies. It was really sad to me that I was seeing women who came out of their birth feeling like they had failed. And that is something that just broke my heart. And that was the biggest push for me, to get off my butt and spend thousands and thousands of hours developing a childbirth education program that was actually going to make a difference, as well as allow women to feel really proud, to have this really great sense of satisfaction in the work that they had done. And because every woman is giving it her best with the knowledge that she has. And it's so important that we come into motherhood feeling proud of what we've done and what we've achieved. And so that's really the underlying belief and purpose of She Births, is to allow for you to have that. So working at the coalface was important, and our community has expanded more and more. And of course, the origins are in beautiful Bondi Beach and all over the place now. So we've even got some of our educators on the line right now who are in Geelong, and I'm popping down there to give a talk soon. And I just launched in Byron Bay. People travel from all over Australia. We've had people come from the Northern Territory, from Cairns, from Innisfail, from Perth, to come over and have baby weekends with us in Sydney as well. And sometimes Sydney families fly off to Orange and Newcastle to have a weekend, you know, maybe with their families or in a nice Airbnb as well. So that's a beautiful thing. So coming off that, I saw the big gaps and everything that was needed, started to sort of piece together. I would say the first 5 years of developing She Births was a biofeedback. Because I'm so immersed in the community, I was teaching lots and lots of pre and postnatal yoga, teaching, you know, the revolving door, like hundreds and hundreds of women, and hearing their stories and going to births and seeing what was working with the breathing, what was working with positioning. It was really integral, that biofeedback, in order to create and refine the program. And then about 5 years in, Western Sydney University lecturer came along and asked to study it, and I'll talk you through that data. So, I mean, an overview of the sort of tragic state that we're at with childbirth. You can see very high epidural rates in the public and private hospital here, really high cesarean section rates, and this isn't making any of these things wrong. This is just going, why? You know, why are they so high? Why do they need to be so high? Anthropologically, if, you know, 1 in 2 women needed to have a cesarean section, if that was really medically necessary, the human race just simply wouldn't exist. We wouldn't have continued on. So it's really important to just look at these stats and say, you know, I'm going to empower myself and not become one. I'm going to do everything that I can to reclaim my birthing power. And birth is so much more than just a physical event or a bringing of the baby into the world. It really imprints us for life. And I believe it is a process towards awakening and even towards enlightenment. It's an extraordinary shift in consciousness. It's a psychosocial experience, and it has a very deep impact, and it's an amazing time where you can transform not just yourself but your whole life through the whole pregnancy and birth experience. So such a high trauma rates, lots of conflict in that first year of parenting. People describe too much pre and postnatal depression, and this isn't just about birth, those 2 statistics. This is about the village failing. And this is so much about our nuclear family environments, and so many of us living away from our families and not being given access to community. And so one of our big things at She Births, and what I've been really passionate about, is about creating community early on in pregnancy and during the programs, and definitely postpartum, because no woman should be raising her child on her own at home there each day. Children are meant to be held by lots of people after that sort of first trimester, post-birth, that 4th trimester. And we should be doing it all together, sharing experiences and enjoying the journey. So lots and lots of people, UN, WHO, lots and lots of people are expressing concern for this global healthcare crisis that we have at the moment. And of course, there are long-term impacts of these medicalized procedures. There's long-term impacts. We are reflecting on the primal health research of synthetic oxytocin, and there's long-term impacts on immunity and even cognitive abilities from cesarean section rates. So there's a lot of correlational, not causational, but correlational studies coming out around this. It doesn't mean one always leads to the other, but we're just touching on that now. So this is kind of what birth, I think, is portrayed as. It's kind of looked like this. Now, I've never even seen this film, but I reckon I'd look like that too. You know, if Hugh Grant was my partner, wouldn't you? I'd be scared shitless. So yeah, this, you can see the sort of clinical, traumatic, petrified experience that they are in. Dread and gloom and despair and worry, and a real sense then of what we see in television, and often what we hear is that other people do birth for us. And I hate to tell you, but that's really not the truth. You do birth. You will birth. Actually, you don't really do it. Nature does it. And you just need to allow nature to do it. That's the key. As much as we can facilitate that, we will then get assistance at certain points if we need it. And we do know that 10 to 20% of women will require some form of medical assistance to help them. And that's been even the same in developing countries, in remote areas. We know that to be true, but that means 80+% of us can actually just allow birthing energy to move through our bodies if we stop the disturbances. And those disturbances might be coming from outside, or they might be existing inside in your own mind, or they might exist inside your body, tight pelvic floors, twisted pelvises, all that kind of stuff. So we do everything to clear the way to allow that process to happen. But contrary to this idea of the medicalized traumatic event that we're all hypnotized towards and is becoming a chronic collective phobia, in my experience, this is what we are all about at She Births. And you can just see that photo, how different the quality is. And our vision is to allow for you to have the most natural, the most gentle, and the most joyous birth experience possible. And that couple, she's a clinical psychologist, and he's actually a doctor and a lawyer, and that's their first baby. Second one, they caught themselves at home, but this was in the public system with the private OB. I didn't make it to the birth, and it was so fast. And the obstetrician said, she said it was the most beautiful birth she'd ever seen in her life, in her career. And it really was, because there was the qualities there that make birth beautiful, like love and connection and calm and intimacy and support and surrender. And these are the qualities. And there's values that have to come into that space. And that's going to build up through your confidence in yourself. And that will command a respect from the system and from your care providers as well. And so all of these qualities and these values create a truly beautiful birth experience, because really what our children learn at this moment is what love is. And the peak amounts of oxytocin in the mother's body and the baby's body create a neuroplasticity that's like off the Richter scale. And at the same time as the mother and child look into each other's eyes, there's a feeling of falling in love. It might not happen immediately. You might still be catching your breath straight after birth. That happens too. But in that first hour, that sacred hour after birth, there's a falling in love. And I really believe that this is the imprint for intimacy and for love and healthy relationships going forward. That mother-child relationship is the primary and primal foundation for our love going forward. And it's a really powerful moment that we can facilitate. And these hormones of labor help it dramatically. And it doesn't mean we have to have a natural labor experience. Just the most natural that we can have tends to be the best birth experience, the most optimal for a mother and child. But certainly every birth can be made beautiful. So how She Births is different. We take a very Eastern approach to the mind-body connection. We are holistic. The term evidence-based gets used a lot now, and we kind of led the way with that. Actually, a huge amount of our website curriculum and copy just gets literally copied and pasted over to other people's sites, I've noticed in the last few years. But we do employ evidence-based tools and techniques, but not all of them are. It's really important to understand that, you know, before childbirth was evidence-based, it was anecdotal. And particularly something so original, we can't literally only look to science. So the TENS machine, for example, which I personally wouldn't go into labour without, is not an evidence-based tool. But 99.9% of women who've ever used one will tell you it's gold. For 50 or 60 bucks to rent that and get through your pre-labour, it's pure gold. So it's not yet an evidence-based tool, but it is in there. So the course was created because I observed and I took time to reflect and get that biofeedback from community and see what was really working. And it just so happened that some of the tools were already evidence-based, and as we go along, some have become more and more evidence-based. And there's always more studies being done as well, particularly around yoga and acupressure. So multidisciplinary, evidence-based toolkit. I believe, and SheBirths has an approach that this is an extraordinary rite of passage that we're all really privileged to go through. But because it's a rite of passage, we're all going to come up against some challenge. Nobody gets off scot-free. And it's at those challenging points that we find out really who we are. And we also get this wonderful opportunity to access our deep strength and an opportunity to really bond as a family unit with your partner or with your support person. It's a very powerful time, and often it will be in labour, but sometimes it's fertility, sometimes it's postpartum, but there's always going to be some friction and some crossroads and challenge along the way. We are massive fans of empowering our partners to give practical support, to connect with mum and baby, and to be able to advocate for them. So it's called SheBirths for a reason, but the he is within the she. And there's a lot more to the name SheBirths. But just know that I've done a lot of speaking in the media and a lot of writing of articles about how wonderful it is that fathers and partners are the primary support person in the room when a baby is born. Now, my dad was there when I was born, 44 years ago, but that was because he was actually the doctor on site, the senior registrar at Edinburgh University and then at the hospital. So he was able to come in, but he didn't know what to do. And maybe some of your dads were there too, but that's just because they didn't feel like going to the pub. So partners have such a big role, and they should be prepared, really prepared, because they are holding a huge amount of their own fears and anxieties, and we need to give them space to alleviate those. And we do that with knowledge and with preparation and with practice, but also sometimes space to even talk about that. And that's the beauty of a weekend course program. You get to have those intimate conversations and get on the same page and really listen to one another. Build your intimacy before you go in. The underlying intention, which is, being scientifically studied, Dr. Sarah Buckley talks about this in her book, Gentle Birth, Gentle Mothering. And you can hear the podcast with Sarah Buckley on the SheBirth show on iTunes. They'll have you listen to your podcasts. And I highly recommend reading her book. And her essay is in our SheBirths book with permission. But a woman's satisfaction after birth is directly related to her involvement in decision-making with her caregivers. So it's not about whether you have an epidural or not. It is whether you feel like you were pushed, forced, rushed, coerced, not spoken to respectfully, and ended up somewhere that you weren't able to engage with a conversation about. And so sometimes those conversations just need to be 30 seconds or a minute long, but you have to believe and know that you can have those conversations. You have to know what questions to ask to have those conversations so that you are engaged. And that's what knowledge and education can give you. And it's important to have this balanced and realistic expectation, not a romantic notion of birth, like some people might portray, and not a medicalized one, the classic one in TV. Scientifically verified, which gives caregivers an opportunity now to implement best practice through our data. So it's through these 3 pillars of she births that we can work towards our intention. The intention is to create a beautiful, beautiful birth no matter what unfolds. And knowledge will give you an optimal mindset. Inner support and inner resources work together now for the mother to be able to connect with that strength, that calm, that confidence, and the support from your partner will be able to allow you to go through the birth with more ease as well. So our 3 pillars cover this extensive curriculum, which sometimes I'm like, oh my God, how do we even fit that into 2 days? But when I was creating the course, my partner, I was like, I need it to be 4 days. And my partner's like, Nadine, not a single bloke in the world is going to sit through a 4-day childbirth education program. So you better find a way. And we have, yay. So anatomy, physiology, the chemistry, the endocrinology, the nervous systems, the stages of labor, breastfeeding, baby-led attachment, and the body, mind, and how they interact with one another and affect one another all allow you to feel really confident and trust your body, because it's through knowledge and understanding your body and all the extraordinary things that happen during labor and in the lead up to labor, in that last sort of 5+ weeks before you give birth. So much is going on inside your body and your chemistry to facilitate birth, but we can hinder it. We can stop that by, coming into our analytical minds, getting too busy, not taking care of the body. All of these things will restrict the birthing process from unfolding with more ease. So we need the knowledge of what we can do. The inner resources are primarily Eastern techniques and what women have just been utilizing since the beginning of time to get through birth, to manage the sensations, and not just manage them, but actually work with them to facilitate greater space, greater opening, greater release in the body, greater pleasure during birth. So breathing, relaxation, visualization, active birthing, yoga, spiraling or belly dancing, vocalization, and the use of affirmations will definitely help. And it is about having all 8. 8 is like your absolute minimum. You have to have them all. You have to have felt them, practiced them, touched upon them, connected to them, and embodied them. So that's why we recommend doing she births as early as possible. And it's when you know them that then when the big day comes, you just pull them out of the toolkit straight away. And what really works for birth is when you've got at least, 2 or 3 of these resources working at once. So we have our breathing, plus we've got spiraling going on, right? And then we might also flip over to the other side of the screen, you'll see the outer resources. We might have that going on too, right? And these are the things for your partner to understand and know the ways that they can support you to allow you to have more comfort, more ease, and again, allow that journey to unfold with more grace. So knowing all the massage techniques, knowing the acupressure points that we can use to prevent a medical induction, the Mexican rebozo, and which is not just used in Mexico, it's used all over Africa as well. How to create a conducive environment both at home and at the hospital. It's so important to realize that the majority of your labor, 90+% of you, will actually just go through that process alone. And the majority of that time will be at home. So it's a very important thing to know how to create a conducive environment for the mammal to be able to relax. How to utilize water and heat, the TENS machine, and then the hospital tools that are there. We talk about the gas and the morphine and so on, and epidurals. And birth preferences, how to write that. And we use a really cool visual one now with lots of little icons. And a lot of people just literally print that one page up. And they actually, more and more often now, I'm seeing people stick it on the door of the hospital, but also take it inside as well. and how to go with the flow, how to make decisions for yourself that are right for you when you hit those crossroads as well. And we use this wonderful acronym BRAND to be able to ask your caregivers, what are the benefits, the risks, the alternatives? What if I do nothing? And what's my intuition telling me? And D, give us time to discuss and decide. That's a very critical part to the whole unfolding. And it's the unison of these three. It's the circling around of these three. As you get more knowledge, when you practice the breathing, you do it differently. And as your partner gives you massages, you start to build more trust in your body and you feel the pelvis open. So there's a continual sort of feedback within these three pillars as well. The research, for those of you who are interested, showed these reductions. 176 couples were involved in that randomized control trial, and the control group received standard hospital education in 2 major hospitals here in Sydney. And then the intervention group received the She Births program over 2 days and received a small booklet, but they didn't get all the app and all the videos and resources that you guys get now that we have. But 65% reduction in epidural was found, 44% in cesarean sections, reduction of 50% in the use of synthetic oxytocin, 53% reduction in resuscitation of babies, 12% reduction in perineal trauma. That sounds like a small number, but on our board of advisors, we have Professor Andrew Bissett's, and he said he'd spent his whole career traveling around, going to conferences and getting excited about 1 or 2% reductions in perineal trauma. So that's exciting as well. And then a 32-minute reduction in the second stage of labour. And given that really the majority of public hospitals will only allow 2 hours total for second stage, it's a very significant number, which is obviously going to protect the pelvic floor and the internal organs as well. So you can download that full trial results. That's in BMJ Open, so it's an open study. And this is a little bit more about it. Women in the control group experienced a higher than average rate of epidural use, augmentation and instrumental. But this is all consistent with the data showing higher rates of intervention for first-time mums compared to second-time mums. So it was seen in the control and the intervention group, the people who chose to be in the study did have very high levels of anxiety. But sample groups were both the same in their anxiety levels as well. So that's important to see. And it's good that it works, right? I know it works for highly anxious people. I know that She Births works for A-types. Because I just happen to be one, and I seem to attract lots of them, as well as lots of yogis and relaxed people as well, which is a good thing. We have a balance in She Births. So it was found that complementary medicine techniques are effective and viable. The outcome of the study was a positive attitude towards birth. There was no individual technique specifically that worked, and that's a very important thing, that the toolkit was there, and the combination of both active and relaxation, which is unique to She Births. I think some people are saying in other programs that they've adopted it, but I know that they haven't really adopted it in such an in-depth way and don't teach it to the extent of such practicality that we do. And it has been shown, unfortunately, that self-hypnosis trainings have failed to reduce any use of analgesia, and this is according to Cochrane and their research as well. So that alone is never enough. And I could talk for days about, what I mean by hypnosis as well and all that sort of stuff, but we'll do that another time. So the She Births program is available to you as a 2-day weekend course. Sometimes it's split over weekends. Often it's done so 2 days back to back. You really get to immerse. You get to have great conversations throughout. You get to go home and read the book and watch videos. Then after that, there's lots of online resources, and we have amazing communities, both online and offline. And the online program itself is, it's taken me so long to create it because I really wanted to feel comfortable, is actually lots of beautiful short videos, beautifully made because, I come from a film background, short videos of me delivering that weekend course, but in a really punchy way with great little bullet points coming up. And then it's got like reminders when you need your props. So you just pop it up on the television screen and do it at home in your own time. And it's a great way to revise. Or you watch it on your phone, right, on the way to work. So that unique structure and language, there's a sort of sequencing that's quite unique to the She Births program, is designed to create stronger families. And 95% of our couples say that the course allowed them to communicate more effectively with their caregivers and with one another, which I'm very, very happy about. And when we do our own surveys, a random 200 births, public and private hospital, high and low risk mums, we get these results. That 83% of our mums birth vaginally or have what's called a normal birth by the government. And then we have a 12% emergency C-section, a 5% scheduled C-section. And so that 12% C-section is 1/3 really of the national average currently as well, which are very good statistics. And then when we look at the tools, like I said, there's a layering that goes on, and that's a really important thing. But just during pregnancy and just during birth, we do actually track what people use in pregnancy and postpartum. And again, all the tools get used again because they're life skills. You see 89% breathing, 85% spiraling. I was so surprised at that. 76% the yoga, and then massage at the same, and visualization and acupressure. Rebozo we've only had for the last 5 years. That wasn't in the study, so it's just off to the side. And I just love it that people keep to the She Births diet during their birth. God love them. And the Orgasmatron. You'll understand that when you do the weekend course. It's the Bliss Whisk. The online course is friggin' awesome. As I've already said, it's got 4 core modules, just like your weekend course has. And lots of people are finding it incredibly engaging and rewarding to go through the program that way. It takes about 8 hours to go through that content, and then you can choose to go into the other areas and watch little videos as you go along. And this is kind of what the app looks like. We also have that $39 intro course just for you to trial and see if you like our philosophy, if you get value, and then you can upgrade whenever you want. And there's payment plans as well now, which is great. They're just implementing that into the website right now. So you can split the payment over 3 months, and the same with your weekend course as well, which I'm sure makes things a lot easier for a lot of people. But you'll find so many goodies inside the book, all the checklists, all the cheat sheets. And, the moment mum goes into labour, you literally just got to get the phone out and start looking, or the pages of your booklet, and you're like, there's the acupressure points. That's how I make it comfy so I can facilitate the active birthing and the yoga. This is the massage. That's the hot spot. So that's really what a lot of partners are doing. Also, by being a part of She Births, you get to join our rewards program, which is super exciting. And these are just some of the companies that work with us in a sponsorship way, and are very happy to share fantastic discounts onto you, because we know it's so confusing. There's so many products and things, people throwing stuff at you, and a lot of things you just don't have to buy, right? We're just going to secondhand it. Let's not create landfill. But, it's nice to have your own undies, isn't it? Your own booty undies. And Kiara, the best probiotic if anyone gets mastitis, all these birth partner for reduced prices on TENS machine and other hiring, organic stuff delivered to your door. Lots of cool stuff there that you can look through. And so we give those codes to you once you've come in. But these are the most important stats, I think, after our birth results. Did She Births, do you believe it was good value for money? 99% of people have said yes. Did you enjoy the 2-day weekend course? 100% said yes. That's good, because learning should be fun. It should be engaging. And did she births allow you to create your own beautiful birth experience? And 98% said yes. And we don't have a 98% orgasmic birth rate, right? But I'm very happy to see such a huge majority of people are actually able to take the philosophy, to take the tools and apply it to their own unique birth experience, because every birth is totally unique and you can do it. It is possible to actually create an amazing birth experience with those qualities, with those values, and with those tools. At the end of the day, birth is the most beautiful, amazing, ecstatic, extraordinarily wonderful day of your life. And every woman should be looking forward to it. Every partner should be excited about it. You're going to meet your baby, and they're going to be like an old friend that's just circled back into your life again. You're going to know them on such a deep soul level that the rest of your lives will be amazing. I can't talk too much about parenting anymore because I start crying now that I'm at the end of my parenting journey. So we'll keep going. It reminds me too much of birthing Leroy. And I think, birth isn't just about one birth at a time. It's about birth for all people and making it a sacred experience, because for so long now, birth has been medicalized and made into sort of popular, traumatic, sensationalized fiction in TV. And we need to restore that sanctity, the sacredness of childbirth for yourselves and help others. And we can do that with education and with the sisterhood and with supporting one another and creating villages and sharing the good stuff, sharing the positive stories as well is really, really important. We learn so much through birth. Now, I thought I might, I'm watching the time. I've got a few questions here. Someone's actually just, Erin's just typed one in for us. Not too late for questions. Can I recommend any prenatal yoga classes in the eastern suburbs of Sydney? Yes, mine. You can come to mine. I'm at the Dharmashala, which is 108 Brighton Boulevard in North Bondi, right up near the bus depot. And I'm there on Saturdays at midday for an hour and a quarter, often an hour and a half. We often go over. And Mondays from 8 a.m. to finishing bang 9:15 a.m. And if you need to leave at 9, you're also welcome to do that. But I'm there Mondays and Saturdays. So please come along. I'm there. And it's a beautiful, beautiful space. So let me, when do I start? When do you recommend start doing the online course? Well, you know what? As early as possible, because we cover so much about nutrition and give you information, I think, that often informs people's ability to engage with caregivers, and so that we really get to that place of building a deep respect and trust and confidence and being on the same page with the system and the provider that you're with. I'm going to say do it as early as possible. I'd say 20 weeks would be a great time to start, 22, around then. Once we get towards the 36, 37, baby could come any day, but the brain literally does start to shut down. Your frontal lobe will start to become foggy and it gets clouded with beta endorphins, which is part of the back brain taking over for childbirth. So more and more, I'm just saying, do it as early as you can. Yes. Will I design? Rose is saying, will I design, if I can get the mouse to move, a she-birth doula training one day? I really will. I just feel so busy and I just want to savor this last year with my baby boy at home, but I really, really will. Maybe next year. But I do have a lot of plans to go traveling next year and try and help our sisters over in the developing worlds, and if I can help as well, our Indigenous people. So I got lots that I want to do. Yay, Rose says, yay. Thanks, darling. All right, so what have we got here? Pelvic floor questions. Let's jump into those. Fellow Nadine, said, I went to see a pelvic floor physio after my first baby, which was 2 years ago, and I was told that I had an overactive pelvic floor. Okay, Nadine, you are not alone. An absolute majority have an overactive pelvic floor, and she's never had problems with incontinence or pain, which is great to hear. Doing 5 months pregnant again, should I see a physio again during my pregnancy, or should I wait until after the baby is born? I would definitely go now. It's always good to have a barometer check as well with your physiotherapist. And a good physiotherapist, we recommend a lot, and we're expanding that list all the time, is a women's physio who's a specialist in pelvic floor. So you want someone that can actually do what we call a digital exam, which is fingers in the vagina, which sounds crazy, but an ultrasound of watching your pelvic floor lifting your bladder up and down is not enough to determine if you have a hypo, under, or hypertonic pelvic floor. So find a really good physio, look on our list, see if you can find someone. You're also saying you're feeling a heaviness in the vagina, and yeah, that could be something related to your pelvic floor as well. And sometimes we go from overactive to underactive as well. So I would go get an assessment now, and then you can always have a really good one after the baby's born. I've had mums really discover even sometimes, their back pain, their glute pain is actually coming from a hypertonic pelvic floor, and they've had to learn how to release. I've had mums that have been told they have like fascial knots in there, and they have to release that side. And it really does make for an easier passage for your baby. Absolutely. Someone else is saying her first birth wasn't traumatic in any way. It was a short labor. It was only 2.5 hours after induction. What are some suggestions to prepare for my second birth? Well, I would suggest checking out the She Births online program and understanding that active birth and yoga isn't always about speeding labor up. Sometimes we can slow it down by the way you position yourself and the way you move, which can be really helpful in a fast birth as well. And I would get really stuck into certain sort of protocols that we have, both nutrition and acupressure and yoga, that will help to stimulate the body to go into labor naturally and help you avoid a medical induction, because it is definitely harder with an induction and not as pleasant as well. Let's have a look. I've got some more questions. I'm 38 weeks and I haven't done a course. What is the best thing for me to focus on for a positive birth and to get into the mindset? Yeah, I mean, if you can just download even that $39 She Births program, you will discover a huge amount in there to help you get into that zone. You want to get into a space of complete trust and no-mindedness. That's like your optimal mind set for birth. And I think we do that by just coming into our bodies, however that is for you. For me, it's yoga. For you, it might be swimming. It's a bit cold. It's meditation. If it's doing the visualizations, I think, the visualizations and not watching or not listening to any negative stories. I think for those of you who are preparing, it goes the other way. The number one thing you really can do all through your pregnancy is listen to positive birth stories and read those in-depth positive stories as well. And that's why we have, so many like short little 10 to 15 minute video interviews with our families talking about their birth, what they were thinking, what they were feeling, how they made decisions, how they applied the philosophy and the tools to their unique experience. You have to embody and understand that if it's possible for one, it's possible for me. And you have to really listen to those stories to build up the healthy, positive neural pathways in your own mind. That's how you get into a positive mindset. So the human mind will receive and encode negativity 5 times faster than it does positivity. So we have to avoid it as much as possible. And if we've been doing that naturally and hearing all this rubbish and negativity for such a long time, you've got to swing it the other way, 5-1 minimum. And when you hear a story, your brain is 22 times more likely to remember the information if it's within a story, which probably just reminds me I should be telling more stories, right? But read them on the website, listen to them in the app, watch the videos and so on. Listen to the podcasts. There's some great birth stories there. And that will help greatly, in the prep for birth. Another question. I'm 26 weeks pregnant. I've found myself in a position where I don't like my caregiver, and I have tried to get in with others with a September date. I'm finding it difficult to get in to another one, and wonder if you or Shebas have any recommendations for what to do with this. It's never too late to change your caregiver. If you are not liking them now, I promise you will like them even less during labor. That person that is with you in labor has to be a confidant, has to be someone that you feel a really deep sense of trust and safety with. If this is your first baby, I promise you can't know the vulnerable space that you will feel during childbirth. And it is, you feel incredibly exposed. And so it's so important that the people around you are just loving and supportive and caring and trusting of birth. So I promise you will find someone that's right for you. 26 weeks is definitely not too late to change providers if you're not happy. I changed my caregivers at, I think, 35 weeks. And like I said, she was the woman that saved me from unnecessary intervention. So I totally recommend it. Just keep going. Does the online course have an expiration date? I know it's a 4-week course. You can do that over 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 or 12, whatever you want to do. You could go full on hardcore and just do a Netflix binge and watch it all day and all night if you wanted to. It's not staggered, but it's in chunks, and it sort of shows you how much you've watched, and it ticks off as you go along. So it's really easy to know if you've jumped around, where you can go back to as well. If you just want to pick out the bits, if you're close to giving birth, you're like, I just need the acupressure and the yoga, or I just want to do the visualizations. You can see which bits you've done and you can go back. It's super gorgeous. You are most welcome. You are most welcome. Let me have a look. There's so many more questions. Is it okay when we have a water birth? This is the lovely on Instagram at Carrying My Boys. She's asking for best nutrition, best yoga, and what about water births? Is that bad to wash off the vernix from a baby? I have slides for you for nutrition and yoga, but I'm not going to have the time to go into them. I take a naturopathic Ayurvedic perspective, I would say that, with nutrition. So it's not hardcore regime, but we do avoid some foods and we favor others. The key is avoid inflammation in your body and increase magnesium. I'd say those are my 2 top tips, but there's a huge amount of other stuff there. No, there's never one diet for all people, right, as well. So we have vegans, we have paleos, we have omnivores, we have everybody. And so we've got a whole bunch of other ideas that we have around that as well. Best yoga, check out the She Births Prenatal Yoga Sequence, which you can stream through Vimeo or order the DVD. And with that, you also get 10% off the online program. Yay! If you buy the DVD, you will get 10% off, which is really cool. So that's like $40. So the DVD is free. Water births, when your baby's born in water, it's an interesting thing. So there's no risks to having a water birth. It often helps to protect your pelvic floor, allows it to stretch. The only rules we have with water birth is like every 2 hours to get mum out and let her walk around. for at least 20 minutes. She should get out and have a wee as well every 2 hours, because that will help to stabilize her blood pressure, which will have changed from being in the buoyancy of the water. So then she can get back in if she wants. Sounds like a long time, but 2 hours in birth goes like that. Vernix is that creamy substance that's often on your baby's skin, particularly if they're quite early, quite young. They'll have more vernix. That if they're close to 42 weeks, they might have less. And that just stops them from turning into a giant prune in your uterine warm watery palace inside your belly. No, and it doesn't seem to get rubbed off with a water birth, and they still smell absolutely delicious. Your child is going to smell absolutely delicious until they hit year 7 at school and discover, if they're a boy, lynx, that horrific stuff. They're all going to smell absolutely delicious from birth until that point. The big question around water births is what impact it has on the microbiome, because as the baby comes through the vagina, they ingest some of the unique lactobacillus in mum's vaginal space, and this starts to seed the microbiome, and it also gets wiped across their face. And I suppose once the baby's born, how much of the biome is still left on their skin once they've gone from vagina, water and up, and people are discussing that now. But from what I can tell, water birth babies seem to be pretty healthy and have strong immunities. Gosh, there's lots of good questions. How to prevent a tear. You know what? I'm going to share that on our Facebook forum, because I've got 5 really important points for that. Leanne Burke's asking, how does Vedic meditation link to she births? And I think I've talked a little bit about that, but our definitions are the same. We really believe that the mind is noble and the body is intelligent, and nature is supremely intelligent, and we are a part of that innate wisdom and intelligence. And there's nowhere greater than childbirth to really know and experience that. But there's more in depth throughout the program. Is she births available around the world? Absolutely. I'm happy to fly over wherever you are, but also the online program and the app is there. Is it culturally appropriate to different places? Absolutely it is, because really you only have independent midwife, private hospital with an obstetrician. You have public hospitals with delivery suites or birth centres, and that's really the options you have in all Western countries in the world. And unfortunately, you'll see sometimes between 2 hospitals next door to one another or within a 10-20 kilometre radius, their protocols could be vastly different, and they could even be similar to a country in Germany. So you can see similarities all over the place. It's about having the knowledge, the principles, the confidence to ask questions. And all these innate skills are things women have been using universally. And a lot of our program is developed from skills that have been utilised around the world. It's definitely applicable. We've had people in Saudi Arabia and everywhere doing the program. What else is there? Are fathers included in the program? I think I've covered that. Absolutely, they are critical. Do we prepare families for epidurals and C-sections? Absolutely. We have videos and we have books that we've created specifically for creating a positive immune-boosting family C-section. I love that book. I'm so proud of it. And all our families have contributed to that to help other women have better C-sections and positive epidurals as well. So I think that is it. If you have more questions, jump on Instagram. I hope you've enjoyed our talk today. You probably already know this is where you go. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, so is She Births. Got She Births courses everywhere, and we've also got our workplace program. So if you're at work and I think it's really important that workplaces start integrating healthy pregnancies and mothers and fathers into the conversation and their inclusion and diversity programs. Please just reach out if you've got any ideas. But thank you so, so much for all your time today, and thanks for being part of She Births. And I hope it's been helpful, and I hope you have really, really wonderful birth experiences, and reach out to me on Insta or on the website, and I send you all lots and lots of love.